Hey guys, it's Brett. The difference between a mutual fund and an index fund can literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your working lifetime. But what's the difference? So a mutual fund is essentially a single fund, so like a bowl that a bunch of people put all of their money into, and then they take all of that money and the mutual fund manager, the team, will buy different types of equities. So stocks, bonds, debts, they wrap them all together and then they create a portfolio of stocks, of equities, of bonds. And then when you buy that mutual fund, you basically get a fraction of a share of everything that's inside of the mutual fund. But how do they decide what to buy? Well, there's a fund manager or a team of managers who work together to pick the things that they are going to be the most profitable. They're balancing things like risk to make the most profitable return for you, the investor. Now, an index fund is a little bit different. It's still technically a mutual fund, a bowl of funds put together, but there's no fund manager. There's nobody hand-picking stocks, deciding what goes in it. Rather, an index fund is mirroring some sort of financial market index that already exists. A couple examples, the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ. You can get a total market index fund that includes all the stocks in the stock market, so the total stock market index fund. It's really a fund that doesn't have people hand-picking the stocks that are going into it, or the equities that are going into it are already chosen by the existing financial market index. Again, the big thing here with the index fund is there's not people making the decisions, it's just mirroring an existing index. So, which is better? Real quick, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel out and helps me to keep creating great content. Thanks. Now let me be upfront. I own both. In mutual funds, index funds, I own them both personally. But I believe that the index fund is better. Let me tell you why. Right out of the gate, you're going to save at least 1% in interest. Typically, a fund manager, they need to get paid somehow. They need to get paid for their work. And so they're going to get paid their 1%, probably regardless of how the fund performs. So it's a 1% fee. Every fund's a little bit different, so I'm just using 1% as a rough number. But it is a very high fee in comparison to a standard index fund. An index fund percentage, it can be as low as maybe 0.05, as high as maybe 0.3, 0.4%. So not only can a mutual fund cost you 1% more per year, most of the time they don't even outperform the index. We actually even put this to the test. In 2012, The Observer, a British newspaper, wanted to see how well mutual fund managers perform. So they took a group of mutual fund managers, they took a group of school children, and they took a house cat named Orlando, and they had them all pick their stocks for the 2012 year. Guess who outperformed who? While the mutual fund managers used their years of wisdom and experience, Mr. Orlando, the house cat, relied on his toy that he was flinging across the room to land on his key stock picks. And that's how he chose his stocks, and he outperformed the fund managers by 6.5%. So not only do 8 out of 10 fund managers not outperform the market, they don't even outperform the house cat. The key here is just because the mutual fund charges more doesn't mean that it's a better product. Well, then why do mutual funds exist? Well, mutual funds is actually a good idea. It's an easy way for the everyday investor like you and me to diversify our portfolio. And what I mean by that is 30% of my worth isn't wrapped up in Apple stock. 30% of my worth might be wrapped up in the S&P 500, but now 30% of my worth is tied to the performance of 500 different stocks. So if Apple does poorly or Microsoft does poorly, it's not going to have a huge effect because there's 498 other stocks that are included within my portfolio. So if Apple has a bad quarter, instead of losing 10% of my overall worth, I might lose 0.5% because of the weighted average of all of the other stocks in my portfolio. So why do I personally have mutual funds? Well, I have them because I participate in my employer's sponsored 401k plan. And if you have a 401k plan, you already know that you really only get to choose from about 15 or 20 options that your employer's kind of worked out with their broker already. And so I have very limited options. I do have a couple indexes, but I don't want to put all my money into the indexes. So I've diversified amongst different funds. Some of them are index funds. Some of them are mutual funds with higher fees, but they're good performing mutual funds. They have strong track records, strong 5 and 10 year double-digit track records. And so I do have some money in those, to be completely honest. Obviously, I'm not going to give up my employee match just to buy index funds out in the open market outside of my 401k. So it makes the most sense in this scenario to just diversify, buy some mutual funds, but any retirement money that is above and beyond my match percentage, meaning right now I'm contributing 5% of my income, anything above 5% I'm not doing in my 401k. I have an individual IRA outside of my 401k where I do all of the above and beyond the 5% match investing. So all in all, I believe that the index fund is better because of the fees, because of the outperformance, because of Orlando the house cat. I believe the index fund is better. I believe the index fund is better.
I believe the index fund is better.
But I do own mutual funds because I customize it around my situation. Everyone's situation is different. You may be stuck owning some mutual funds. If you're still undecided and all this information is kind of overloading and you don't know what to do, just remember this one thing. When you look at wealth and you look at people who have created great wealth in the stock market, the number one, the number two, the number three contributor isn't choosing funds with low fees. The number one contributor to creating wealth is continuously investing. So regardless of how the market's performing, it's going up. Right now it's going down. Stocks are going on sale. You're continuously investing over time. That is the number one predictor of wealth. And if you do that 50, 100, 150, 200 bucks a month over year after year after year, you're going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars by the time you're in your 50s and your 60s. One may be cheaper, one may be more expensive, higher fees, lower fees, but the number one thing to remember is to keep contributing over time. If you got something out of the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below of a video you'd like to see next. Thanks, guys.